Okay, well, our recording has started, so we'll begin. Hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Dallin with the City of Oklahoma City Stormwater Quality and the Central Oklahoma Stormwater Alliance, or COSWA. I'd like to officially welcome everyone to this special training event. If anyone is interested in receiving a certificate of attendance for this training, please send me an email to request it. I will need your email address to be able to send their certificate to you, so please do not ask for those in chat, but do send me an email. If you have any questions about the certificates or haven't received one within a couple of days after this webinar, feel free to email me. And I'm going to pop my email address into chat right now so everyone will have that handy. Now, normally this would be the time where I would ask everyone to keep themselves muted, and certainly keep that in mind if you're not actively engaging with our guest speaker today, or if you've got background noise that could be disruptive. Sorry, I will keep myself muted as soon as possible with all of my background noises. However, today's webinar is going to be a conversation. So I do encourage everyone to turn their cameras on and engage. If you have any questions and would prefer to do so, you can still type them into chat at any time. We will have a few slides at the beginning, but there will be ample time at the end for both questions and conversations over today's topics. Today we'll be hearing from April Sailsbury with Byers Creative, a new COSWA affiliate. She will be sharing information on today's presentation titled Community Connection, Outreach Messages, and Tactics That Make a Big Difference. April is a skilled strategic marketer with over 25 years of experience helping businesses grow and connect with their audiences. She thrives on the challenge of identifying the right target market and crafting innovative, practical strategies to reach them. April has worked with a diverse range of B2B or business to business and B2C or business to consumer clients, from large manufacturing companies to small retail shops. And she brings the same energy and dedication to every project, regardless of its size or scope. She currently serves as an account manager at Byers Creative, where she helps clients develop and implement impactful marketing strategies. A proud graduate of Oklahoma State University, go Pokes, and the Institute for Organizational Management, April combines both education and real-world experience to deliver meaningful results. Outside of work, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Brad, and their two children, Dax and Olivia, who are currently attending Drury University and Cornell College. She's also a proud dog mom to Rizzy and Rue. And I'm going to stop sharing my slide. And April, I invite you to share yours. And again, please, everyone, turn on your cameras. Let's engage and enjoy today's conversation.
Good morning, everybody. Rebecca, thank you for sharing. I am actually super excited to be here today. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, but I'm also, the virtual thing kind of makes me a little bit anxious. So let's kind of work together to get through this. If you have any questions, let's just ask me. I really, really want to have a conversation with you and not just be sharing information with you. Rebecca did a great job introducing me, but my name is April Sailsbury. I am an account executive with Byers. I have been in a marketing role for really about 30 years, working with all types of clients and all types of situations. So there's not much in marketing that I haven't done. I marketed back before even emails and text messaging were a thing. So I've really kind of been through all of that. I've seen things come and go. I've seen things come back. So I have a pretty good handle on everything that's going on in the marketing world. You guys are in like a different situation because you're community education. So I've done a lot of work with B2B, which is business to business. I've done a lot of work with B2C, which is business to consumer. So business to consumer would be an example of if you were a grocery store and you were marketing to your community. Business to business would be if you were a manufacturer and you wanted another manufacturer to buy your product. You guys are community education, which means you kind of do both. You have to talk to the businesses in your communities to make sure they're doing the right thing. And you also have to talk to the consumers or the individuals in your communities to make sure they're doing the right thing. So you have a really, I don't want to say complicated message, but a really diverse opportunity to message people in a lot of different ways. Today, we're really going to talk about that. We're going to talk about messages and we're going to talk about tactics. The biggest thing that I kind of want you to take away from this is that we need messages that resonate. And what I would remind you is this is a topic that you know everything about. So if you get out there and you start telling the people in your community super scientific words or words that they're not used to hearing, or you're real harsh in your messaging, you can't do this, they're going to stop listening. It's second nature to you. Honestly, you probably get tired of seeing it. You're like, why are you not learning that you can't do these things? But the reality is either they don't know or they're not understanding your message. So you have to find that way to message them. You have to find messaging that resonates. And then tactics are all about being where it matters. It's both sharing a message and sharing that message in person. It's sharing it on social media, on television and newspapers and print. It's finding out all the ways to share a message where people are. We'll talk about this more as we go through, but it's super important to keep that in mind. So I do want to go over a couple of key definitions because we're going to talk about these things a lot. So your audience is who you're talking to. So this is, in your cases, this could be anybody. This could be anybody from children to the older people in your community. It could be from business owners to guys out working on a construction floor. So you have to kind of remember who that audience is, who you're talking to, and you're going to need to adjust that message to who you're talking to. The message is what you're saying. What you say to different generations does not resonate the same. What you say to a 50-year-old woman may not be heard the same or seen the same as what you would say to or by a 17-year-old kid. So for example, if any of you have teenagers, exclamation points are everything they do, but if you put a period in a sentence, they think you're mad. So can't wait to see you, period. They're like, oh gosh, they can't wait to see me because I'm in trouble. Sounds so crazy to us, but to that generation, that's what that means. So you have to be really careful about how you're messaging and what you're saying. The reach is how many people see your message, which is vitally important that you understand the number of people that are out there seeing your message. Frequency is how often that message is seen. And then tactics are really the how behind the plan. The tactics is where the fun happens, to be honest. That's where you get to take all of this work and research and information you've put together, and you get to put that into a plan. It is the strategy. It is my absolute favorite thing to do and the thing that I would talk to you about all day long. Okay, so before we go forward, does anybody have any questions about any of that? Okay, nobody's going to talk. I'm just going to talk to myself for like 45 minutes. It's okay. Okay, let's talk about audiences. So as we mentioned, audience is who you're talking to. You can figure out who your audience is through a lot of different ways. Research is super important. Research is how you find out who's in your community. It's how you find out what your demographics are, what the ethnicities are. Do you need to put messages out there in multiple languages? Do you need to, does your community skew older? Does it skew younger? It's where you find out what do the people in your community like to do? What do they enjoy? So that research is important. Just as important to that, though, is having conversations. So getting out and just talking to people and finding out what they like, what they want to do, and how they're hearing the message that you're putting out there. And then the last one is just a little intuition. If you're going to talk to a construction site, you can, by just using a little intuition, figure out who you're going to run into at that construction site. What are those people like? What do they like to do? You can kind of narrow that down on your own, and you know whether messages are going to reach them or not. You also need to think about what matters to them. I use the car washing example a lot when I'm talking about stormwater, because we have all been washing our cars in our driveways for as long as we can remember, right? And I remember the first time I heard this message, I said, but I use Dawn soap, and Dawn soap is safe enough for ducks. So, but that doesn't mean it should be in our streams, right? So when you go at somebody and you say, hey, we don't want you washing your car in your driveway, or washing your car in your driveway is bad for our streams, you have to give them more than that. And you definitely can't say, stop, just don't do it again. It's dangerous. So you have to find out what matters to them. You have to see why that message will resonate with them, and just really talk through that with them. So I had one of our creatives make this slide for me today, because when you're talking about your audience and messaging, you really want to create messaging that's for your specific audience. My audience today is a mix, I am sure. It is a mix of people that have to be here, or that they're here because they're getting their CEUs or CECs, or they're some kind of proof that they've been through this training. And then we have the people that are so excited to be here. They can't wait. They're going to hear about social media and messaging, and they're so excited to share the new messaging that they're going to have out there. So the question becomes, how do you reach everyone with the same message? And the answer is 100% you don't. You cannot reach everybody with the same message. So knowing your audience is so important. That being said, I'm going to do my best to reach all of you with the same message, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so let's talk about messaging. So messaging is what you're saying. It's not always exactly what you're saying, but it also can be how you're saying what you want to communicate. So are you, are you out there saying, stop doing this? Or are you out there saying, it would be better if you do this? Are you giving alternatives, or are you just shutting things down? So it's really about what you're saying. You need to start that with your audience in mind, as we talked about. Do you have a lot of young people that you're talking to? Are you talking to older people? Are you talking to businesses? Are you trying to get an apartment complex to stop leaving litter all around their trash cans? Think about what your audience is. Think about how they'll respond to the message that they're giving you. Building a good message takes three things. You need to have an opening, you need to have a middle, or what we call the meat, and then you need to have a call to action. So the opening can be so broad. The meat is really the message you want to give them, why it's important, the change you want them to make. And then a call to action is asking them to do that, asking them to make that change, or asking them to go learn more, or asking them to attend a training. It's asking them to take a next step. It can't even be comment below your ideas if you're on social media, or share this message with somebody. Go visit our website, go out to the park today. So a call to action can be anything, but it's asking them to get out and do something. The biggest thing with messaging is that emotions drive action. So there's a ton of ways to get people to do things, but getting into their emotions are really important. You can do that through a number of ways. Humor is 100%. I guarantee you that you've all sat around with your phone and you've watched funny videos on there, or you've shared a funny video with a friend, or you've all sat around and watched something. I'm going to show you an example of a great video.
We cannot see your video,
Oh, dang it.
so we may have to have you share like a screen instead of the window. And we also couldn't hear it, so turn on your noise, or turn on your toggle.
All right, let's try again. Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Let me ask you guys a question. You ever see that little brown spot on your driveway where you park your car? You probably thought, no big deal. But this little spot is a big deal. When it rains, the fluids that leaked out of your car and onto the pavement get washed away by stormwater runoff and make a beeline for our creeks through storm drains. And with over 500,000 vehicles registered in Benton and Washington counties, that's a lot of fluids. If you have an oil leak, get it fixed. Sprinkle some sand or kitty litter on top of that spot to soak up standing spills, but make sure to sweep it up. And if you change your own oil, make sure to dispose of it properly. Know the flow. Visit our website for more info about what you can do to help keep water clean.
So what I love about that message is that it takes something, the oil stains that we all talk about, the oil stains that are on the ground, and I promise you the people that hear that message are annoyed. They're like, it's this big. How can this big make that much of a mess or of a mess or that much of an impact? But it takes that message, it adds humor to it. I mean, when she tastes it, people are not going to forget that action, right? And then it goes in and it talks about all of the cars that are in Benton County. So it takes it and it says, okay, yeah, you're thinking about your one little car, your one little, dot of oil on the ground. But the reality is there's 500,000 cars that are also doing that same little drop of oil. And so that spreads and it multiplies and now it becomes a big problem. So it takes us from just thinking about ourselves to thinking about the overall larger message and the larger problem. And then the last thing it is it's super cheesy. I mean, there's oil cans chasing her. So it's really cheesy, but you're going to remember that cheesiness. The organization that did that actually did 10 videos, and they did that with kind of the 10 biggest stormwater issues that we all talk about. Poop, if I'm just going to be honest. I was going to try to say pet waste. They talked about that. Everything, lawn, anything that you can think of. They did a message or a video about it. They're all funny. Flow is in all of them. The tagline is know the flow. So it really all kind of ties back together. It's silly, it's catchy, it's fun to watch. And so it stands out and it's a very shareable message that people are going to remember. So I think it's a great example of what you can do. I'm going to share. I know you guys can't see my screen, so I'm going to pull up another one. Let me share this one. Sorry. So this is an example of a message that we did with the city of Tulsa Stormwater. And we are doing a species spotlight with them to talk about the different species that live in our streams and our creeks that people don't know about. And this one was about the spotted gar. And the big thing about the spotted gar is nobody thinks that there are gar swimming through the creeks or the streams in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So when we did the messaging, we said, yes, the spotted gar can be found in the Tulsa streams. Are you shocked? So we kind of did that opening, does this surprise you or something that makes them want to read about it? Then we gave them the meat. This is an ancient looking fish with all the information. And then we did a CTA, which was help keep our streams clean and our wildlife thriving, learn more at Tulsa Streams. But the second part of that was you can go in and you can change. Let me share this one now. Sorry, I keep having to go back and share different ones. You can go in and change that message. And I talk to people all the time about how confident are you in the types of messaging that you want to be out there. A negative or a sarcastic message will always work. Our brains are wired to receive negative messaging, and it instantly makes us pay attention, makes us hear what's going on. So a sarcastic or a negative, if you're willing to go that route, will always work. So this one, calling all nature nerds. Oh, oops, we didn't really mean to call you that. We meant to call you nature lovers. And then, did you know the spotted gar live in our streams? Important fact, they live in clear water. Do your part to keep Tulsa streams clean. So what we did was we did this opening part of it that called people in. We kind of went a negative, sarcastic way and then played off the little like, oh, we didn't mean to call you that. Then the meat of it, and then the call to action in the bottom. Funny is super cheesy. What has armor like scales, a long snout, and called Tulsa home? The spotted gar. It's cheesy. It would work great with kids. It'll work great with older people. And then we, of course, did some meat and then a little bit of how you can do your part to make sure they still live here. And then FOMO, or the fear of missing out, which is also a great way to get people to pay attention to your message, is the wait, what do you mean you haven't seen it yet? Everybody's talking about it. Spotted gar are living in Tulsa streams. But if we don't do we do not keep our streams clean, they will be gone. So we don't want to miss out on seeing them, but we also want to do our part to make sure that they don't go away. And then the call to action, do your part today, visit Tulsa Streams to find out. So it's just a lot of different ways that you can present the exact same message. You can use that fear of missing out. You can use the negative. You can use the funny. You can use the cheesy. By all means, don't use the boring. Don't say scientific name of spotted gar lives in this scientific part of a stream because this scientific thing happens, blah, 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 blah. I know it's important. I know it matters to you, but it's not going to pull people in to listen to that message. I'm sorry to have to say it like that. So forgive me for that. I'm going to reshare my screen with the presentation.
Hey, April.
Yes.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Ask.
Hi, my name's Jordan. I'm with the City of OKC. I have a question about the call to action portion of the post. Usually in that section of a post, you'll find, it's, yes, there's a call to action, but there's also a request for the reader to do something related to that post, whether it's visit a website or comment on the post, something like that. And a couple years ago, I know at least Facebook had issued some notices about trying to prevent clickbait and how that might affect your appearance in everybody's algorithm, and you could eventually be penalized.
Right.
Is there a way, I guess, what would your recommendations be for COSWA to avoid those kinds of penalties, but still be able to get some feedback and participation from our followers?
So clickbait is really when you give a message or you show a video and there's never an end to it. Or you give a message and you click on the link and you tell them to go read something, and what you tell them to read has nothing to do with the message that you're getting them in there for. So it's really a message that drives people to do something that is unrelated to the item that you're wanting them to do. If you're watching TikToks and you get on a video and it says, and it shows, it tells the first 5 seconds of a story and someone's jumping, but you don't see what happens. They're going to jump off a cliff. It looks like they're going to jump off a cliff, but you never see the result of what happens. And then when you click to read more, you get served up tons of ads and tons of just nonsense information. You have to read through all of that to maybe possibly get to the end of it. That's clickbait. Another example of clickbait is if you do like a super scary half of a message, like, this is a terrible one, but I'm just thinking off the cuff, but spotted gar can bite people, and because people think gar and they're scary looking, and so you really play on that. And then when you get into it, it's, oh, but really we want them here, and they show that our streams are clean, and so keep your streams clean so that we can have gar. That's clickbait. Just asking them to visit your website or share the post or comment or share pictures isn't going to be required, or isn't going to be referred to as clickbait.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, that clears that up quite a bit. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions before we move forward?
Hey, April, I do. Can you hear me?
I can.
I appreciate your talk on messaging. In your experience, have you ever bumped into like punitive messaging and kind of the approach to things where it's like, do this and not that type of thing? And is it impactful and does it work?
So negative punitive messaging can have a role in some places. So let's talk about, like, if you're going out to a construction site and the silt fence hasn't been installed right, and you've been out there over and over and over, and they're never doing it. You would start out with a kind message. This is how this works. And then they don't do it. And so then you get a little more forward with your message. And then finally they're not doing it. And then you're sending a negative message. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. But when you're talking about just the general community, no, the negative punitive messages are not going to work. They're just going to turn people off. Like I said in the beginning, I kind of go to that car wash example a lot, because if you go to somebody and you say, stop washing your car in your driveway, they're going to look at you like you've lost your mind and just be like, why would you ask me to do something different than what I've always done? Or even pet waste is a good example. You will get the message back, oh, but animals poop in the woods all the time and it's perfectly fine. And so you have to start with kind of messaging them about why that's important, what the difference is, what is happening there. And honestly, that's one that you could kind of tie that fear back into, and the E. coli and the bacteria that comes from it. So you could kind of go into a fear-based messaging with that. But just to kind of go back to Michael was asking, punitive messaging, negative messaging, you can't do this anymore. If you do this, we're going to fine you. If you do this, this bad thing is going to happen, is not going to get through to people. It's going to turn them off and they're going to stop paying attention to what you're doing. And I would say that message, I use construction sites or business places as a way that punitive can work, but I wouldn't go in and start with that message. I would start with a little bit different message. And then if the problem persists, then you can change the message that you're sending out. Anybody have any other questions right now? It's so much more fun when we get to talk. So ask your questions. Okay.
Hey, April, I do have one more.
Jordan's my favorite person on this call right now.
And it's about messaging as well. And when you were talking earlier about different audiences, especially when it comes to stormwater, a lot of us have, a requirement where we're being directed to reach 100% of our audiences. So yeah, that's our senior citizens, that's youth, that's general, that's professional, blah, blah, blah. But, you mentioned you had that great slide where it says, one message is not going to reach everybody. It's just impossible. So when you guys are working with a client and developing a program, like a schedule of different social media posts, will that program typically have like maybe the same topic or same message, but just created differently to reach all those different age groups and demographics?
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways you can look at that. You can look at the different places that people are reading their information and how they're getting that information delivered to them. So for the most part, I mean, there's no sound, there's no like be all end all to this, but for the most part, Facebook skews older, Instagram skews younger, TikTok even skews a little bit younger than that, although it's coming back up. So you could put a message on Facebook and put a very different message on Instagram, for example. You can be, so let's add LinkedIn in there. So the message that you could put on LinkedIn would be more business and more professional. You could give them more long form, this is why, the reasons, the understanding, and that's going to reach them. But if you go on Facebook, you would want it to be, short and sweet, probably still funny or one of those routes. And then on Instagram, you can use the slangy type words and get out there. I mentioned TikTok, and we'll talk about this some more in our tactics. It's a scary topic, but it isn't something to ignore. It is something that we should all keep an eye on. So we'll probably keep it out of this conversation, but I did want to say, since I brought it up, that it is one that even though we're all a little bit like, we need to keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back. Okay, so messaging again, what they're saying, you start with your audience, and then how to build the good message. The next thing is going to be reach, and I'm going to go a little bit faster because we're already at 10:30. That's how many people see your message, and that's why it's important to be where it matters, and then break through the noise. I have for a long time referred to reaching people by you have to get through the noise. You have to get through the 4,000 to 10,000 advertising messages that they get a day. You have to find a way to make that happen. So you do that a couple of ways. But it's really just figuring out where they're going to be, what they're paying attention to. We've been talking to one organization that we've talked about. They're having a problem with a couple of things happening on construction sites. And we've talked about putting messages and putting stickers inside porta potties, putting stickers on their hard hats, just so that we can be messaging them in a place that they're not expecting to hear it. It's not coming from their supervisor or their foreman. It's not coming from the bigwigs in their office. Just finding a message and seeing it somewhere else is what we're talking about, kind of how to break through for them. The biggest important thing that I do want to say to you is never turn the lights off. And what that means is, especially with social media, if you start posting on social media, you are all excited and you've hired a marketing intern, or somebody in your office says, oh, I can do social media, and they make posts for 8 weeks. And then all of a sudden, the intern goes back to school, or they get super busy, or something, that person leaves that job and you fill it with somebody who doesn't know social media, and you turn that light off, you have completely messed up your algorithm. So you always need to make sure that you're at least once a week putting a message out there. In your guys' case, since you're posting on city websites, it doesn't always have to be stormwater messaging, as long as the city is consistently putting messaging out there. But I would say, just to keep your messaging in front of you, that you want to do at least a minimum of once a week. Frequency, we just kind of talked about this with the once a week, but this is how often your message is seen. There's two things. There's a rule of 7, and then there's a rule of 3. The rule of 7 is how often to get your message in front of your audience. So in order for them to start really taking action, they need to see that message 7 times. So you have to get that message out there over and over. Don't be afraid to say, oh, but we've already talked about cleaning up your grease stain on your driveway. That's okay. Talk about it again. Tell them it several times. Change the picture a little bit, change the message a little bit, but put the same message out there over and over and over so they start to see it. The rule of 3 is what the message says so that it sticks. So know the flow is a good example. Once you've heard that, I've seen that video a few times myself. I will never forget know the flow. I know exactly who flow is. So after you've seen it, they say 3 times, that message is going to stick with you and it's going to stand out. I was talking to somebody here in our office, and we talked about a message that we had come up with about going down the storm drain. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he had heard it enough times. He was out on a walk with his friend or with his wife, and he said, oh, and he repeated the message perfectly. So that messages will stick when we start hearing them several times. Okay, so we're going to get into tactics, which is my favorite part. So the tactics are really the how behind the plan. This is the strategy. This is when you start saying, how am I going to get this message out there to as many people as I can? And how am I going to make sure that the message that I get out there all ties together, and that it's a clear, concise message reaching as many people as possible? So there's all of the traditional tactics. So there's the radio and television, billboard, email, direct mail, and public relations. So let's talk about those for just a second. The thing that it can be a little bit hesitant for me about traditional tactics is not being able to truly measure who you're reaching. There are ways to do that. If I have a radio person that I'm talking to, they're definitely going to tell me the ways that they can do that. Same with television. You have to be a little bit inventive when you're doing that. But it is a great way to reach people, especially if you're trying to reach an older population and you want to do something around the news hour or something around the morning shows that they like to watch. It's a great way to reach people. The next ones are billboards. Billboards are back. I don't know how to say it other than that. Like, if fashion can come and go, so can billboards. And in my 30 years, they have really come and go. Are coming on, but they are back, and they're back because back to that noise. There's so much noise out there that a billboard is a single message that people see on their drive home, on their drive to church, taking their kids to school, and they see that message over and over and over. So it gets the frequency out there. It reaches, if it's in your community, it reaches the people that you want to reach. And you can do some pretty impactful things on a billboard. Use that same messaging. If you can be funny, you can have FOMO, you can highlight something super cool that's happening. For example, a spotted gar being in the stream. There's lots of things that you can do on a billboard. Email, if you have email addresses for people, there are a number of people that really read those emails. We recently did some research and we found that there is a population, probably 60 and older, that really still like to read what they feel is a message from the city because they have so much trust in what the city is saying to them. Direct mail is another example. I know that utility bills, a lot of people can put stuffers in their utility bills. And there is a population that really sees that and pays attention to that. So PR is one that people either love it or they're super afraid of it. And that's because it's talking to the media. So the media can be our friend. And I am sure you have all experienced the media is not always our friend. And so where I come from a PR standpoint in messaging, like you're trying to do with your stormwater messaging, is the more messaging that you can give them from a positive angle, the more they're going to give you positive coverage. So I don't know if you know this, but all of our reporters every morning, they have to go into a meeting and they have to pitch a story. And their directors, their news reporter, or their anchors are waiting for them to come in, tell a great story that's going to be on the news that day. So if you've gone out there and you've given them some super timely message or some super cool thing that they can talk about, there's a really good chance they're going to pitch that. So once that message gets picked up, now they're like, hey, this person is a source for me to have a story in my back pocket that I can pitch, either because it's great timing or because I have nothing else to pitch. And my directors are biting on these stories. So now they become your friend. So now when something that could be negative comes along, you can go, they will remember, oh, this is my source for positive news. I should probably be a little careful in going after them in this way. And that's when you start getting phone calls. Hey, we're going to do this story. You know, can you talk us through some of why it actually happened? That's where some of that starts to play in. So I wouldn't shy away from PR. That's a discussion I can have with any of your communication people about how to use that. It's a really, really valuable tool. The next one are the digital tactics. The digital tactics are great for a lot of reasons, and especially social media because it's free. You can put as much out on social media as you want to, and it is not going to cost you a dime other than you have to have the creative done and you have to get the messaging. But putting that message out there over and over and over is not going to cost you any more money. So it's a great opportunity to get stuff out there. Everybody's on social media. They're scrolling through their social media every day. Just be sure that you're looking at all of the options of social medias that you can use and that you're taking advantage of the messaging option out there. Nextdoor is another way to get messaging out there. It makes us all cringe, but people are paying attention to it. And then YouTube is another great opportunity to get messaging out there. That would be paid messaging. You can also do paid messaging on social media, which if you are actually doing a campaign and there is something important you want to get out there, I would 100% suggest that you set money aside for some paid social media or meta advertising. You can do the same thing on YouTube and reach a very diverse audience. YouTube construction sites are, a great, they're a tense situation sometimes. And if you can narrow down to, if I have a construction worker, what type of video are they watching on YouTube, which research will give us that information. You can run some ads where you're going to see them. You can also run ads in things like online video gaming, online shopping to help you get in front of those people in a really non-traditional way where they're not expecting to see it. So the last one is non-traditional tactics. These are the things like the event sponsorships, the partnerships with, so in Oklahoma City, is it Keep OK Beautiful or OKC Beautiful, whatever the organization is. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. This is signage out at parks. This wildflower patch is this type of wildflower, and it grows here for this reason, and we have to keep the water clean so that it continues to grow. So those are kind of some non-traditional ways to get out there. Event sponsorships are, I don't want to say the word scary to me, because they're not scary to me, but don't just rush out there and jump on those. You need to really think about, when I sponsor this event, how am I getting in front of people with my message? And is it breaking through all of the other messages that are out there? If they sold 25 sponsorships into this event, is my one message going to stand out above those 25? So you really need to think through, how do I make sure my message stands out, and how do I make sure that my message is getting to the people that are out there? So just keep that in mind with sponsorships as you're going forward with them. Like I said, they're a great opportunity, but they do kind of make me a little bit anxious. So key takeaways that I kind of want you to be sure to walk away with is, one, know your audience, super important, messages that resonate, and then be where it matters. Be where your audience is with a message that resonates with that audience, and you will start to see your message hit home and start to see change happen. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. What questions do we have? Look at Rebecca's smile.
I don't show anything in chat just yet, but if anyone wants to unmute, type something in chat if you prefer. That's fine too. We'll be happy to read your question for April to answer.
They're shy.
They are.
Or they're working on other things.
April, I do have another question for you. So we've had a lot of discussions with like our internal public information office about some of our posts in the past. And a lot of the discussion is kind of centered around how to formulate the post wording, making it kind of digestible to the public, but they keep enforcing us, keep it at like a third grade kind of reading level. And we've had some complications in the past where some of the messaging might change a little bit, or some, words might be used where it kind of loses the meaning or creates like a negative, negative connotation to the post. Is that third grade reading level? Is that kind of like an industry type standard? Or is it more? Sorry.
I've not heard that. So it could be, if they're doing it at the city, it could be because of the broad audience that you're trying to reach out to. And so they're saying, let's keep it at an easy reading level. I think the thing with social media, captions are important. Captions are, they have the call to action. They're where the real story is. But more important is the message that you're putting in the graphic or the image or the video that you're putting out there. Because if you think about yourself, scrolling through, what stops you is that image. And so that message that you put right there, if that doesn't stop them, then the message and what you're saying there isn't going to matter at all. So if you're finding that in order to bring back the language, you're getting into words that don't make sense or don't work, just shorten that caption and make sure that you're really driving home that message in the image that you include with it. And so that image that I showed you guys about the spotted gar, that's a carousel. The great thing about a carousel is it allows you to give a lot of information in one graphic or in one post, because you can scroll through them and see more and see more and see more. So if you really have a big message that you're trying to get across, be sure to use those carousels. It's a great way to get that out there.
So it's not so much, keeping it at a certain, reading level, but using those tactics that you mentioned about like the fear of missing out, or add humor into it. So it's more about the approach, not necessarily the type of language you're using.
And I would not shy away from putting humor or putting those different, trying out those different messages and way of talking to people, like the nature nerd thing. People are going to remember that. So if you're always wanting to talk about a species highlight, saying, hey, all my nature nerds, we're back with more, it's going to stand out. People are going to remember it, and they're going to start to realize, oh, they're talking about some cool something happening in one of our parks. So just don't be afraid to try messaging out. You'll see what hits and what doesn't. It's a little scary being on the city website, just knowing, or the city socials, knowing how people react. So really you have to think that through probably more than you do in some other places, but there's definitely ways to get it done.
I do have another question, but I don't want to monopolize you. So
go ahead.
if anybody else has a question, please hop in.
I've got another question, April, and that is, if I'm a product manufacturer, and 2 months ago I sold 5 widgets, and last month I sold 10 widgets. In between there, I did some message marketing. Pretty clear to me that my message marketing was responsible for a 5 widget increase over that span of time. With community education, in this case, is it accurate to say that this might be a longer game in terms of realizing your success metrics, or what should I look for and how do I measure that?
It's 100%. This is going to be a longer game, and there's different ways to measure it, but it's going to have to be, for the most part, when you start seeing a change, when you're out at those creeks and rivers and you're doing you're doing the testing that you do. So you just have to continue to get that message out there, and then continue to have those conversations with people, and start seeing where what they're picking up on and what they're remembering. There was a question in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So William asks, have you had any luck with phone apps for marketing or getting messages out there?
So the thing about a phone application is it has to have an ecosystem that drives people to it. So if you just have an app about your community, but you don't have any reason for people to come in and actually be on that app, they're not going to go to it. So yes and no. If you're willing to build an ecosystem around it, what I mean by ecosystem around it is doing all of those marketing tactics that we're talking about, pointing people back to that app to get information, it can be super valuable. If you're not doing that, then it's just this piece of tech that's sitting out there and there's no information going on. If you're talking about advertising in phone apps, yes and no. For a very specific audience, I don't know that this message would resonate through, but I think we could maybe find some places that would be helpful that it might get through.
Well, while we have a small pause, April, would it be okay if I announced our special secret today? Okay,
Yes.
cool. So we do have a special announcement for all the attendees today. You will going to be getting first access to some brand new graphics courtesy of Byers Creative that are COSWA branded and can be used for your community's outreach program. So I'm going to share those real quick on and then we'll get those emailed out to everybody who was in attendance today. So anyway, feel free to continue having conversations while we're watching these scroll through. Still scrolling.
I was like, is it scrolling?
It's supposed to. I don't know if it will or not. It's not doing it. I made it mad.
There you go. So the thing about these, like the cigarette butts, the plastic bag, these can be individual posts that you're putting out there, or these can go back to that carousel post where you can say, the litter that we're trying to get you to stop doing, this is why, this is what it means, this is how long it takes to break down, this is how long it's going to reside and continue to impact our streams and our rivers in our communities.
Oh, there it goes. Okay.
There we go.
Maybe. Oh, maybe I didn't do it on all slides. That's what I did. I was trying to add some animation so it automatically transition. And I think I just did it to like one slide. So it did great on the one. Good job. So, but yeah, there's six graphics for us. So thank you to April and your team for getting us these cool things.
Now, Sean that designed those is actually on here, and he did a great job. So
yes, great job. Thank you, Sean.
Jordan, did you have one more question that you wanted to ask?
Yes. So my question's about like tracking impressions, because I know that's really important for a lot of folks on the call right now. When it comes to like social media and tracking those impressions, we kind of have something set where we try to track it after 7 days. And so it's really just, when does the message kind of stop being relevant? You mentioned like posting once every week at least, just to kind of keep attention on the different topics. So does that sound to you like a pretty decent time frame to gauge, I guess, the high point of related activity on the post?
So there's a couple of ways to look at this. Yes, I would say about a week after you post the message, you can go back and look at it and see how it's done. There's a couple of ways to get your messages out on Facebook or on social medias in general. I think the big thing that we kind of forget is that social media is a conversation. So sharing those messages, having your employees share those messages, those are going to be things that will get that message out there farther and wider and getting people to pay attention to them. The other big thing is the only people that see your message that you're posting in your actual feed are the people that already like or follow your pages. So your stories, however, is where anybody and everybody can see your messaging. So either creating messaging specifically for stories or simply sharing your story. You don't even have to add anything to it, but sharing your post on your story will automatically increase your reach, automatically get your message out there and increase the impressions that you're out there, that is out there. If you're doing paid advertising, and it can happen with any messaging, there is messaging fatigue or ad fatigue where people, they just stop listening. They've heard it so many times. It's why you see major brands like Nike, just do it. They change the message up. It may still be just do it at the end of the day, but they change what that delivery is. It's because we all have fatigue. We've heard it so many times. We don't want to hear it anymore. So you don't want to repeat the exact same thing over and over and over, but you can, kind of change the message around and put it out there. But yes, go back to just kind of how you're measuring it and measuring impressions. You're going to know honestly in the first day or two if that message is reaching where you want it to reach. And then the next time you put that same message out there, change the caption a little bit and see what happens there. But be sure to encourage your employees, your friends to share that message, and then be sure to put it in your stories.
I did not realize that about stories.
Mm-hmm.
So that is just anybody on the platform.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's why when you go through your stories, you see stuff from people that you don't follow. It's because that's your opportunity to put stuff out there and everybody can see that.
I had not thought about that, but you're right. Yeah. So it's really a good idea if you create a post to go ahead and just put it on a story to help increase your reach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can kind of start getting into a situation where if you're really going to run a really solid campaign, you would design and message for all of the platforms plus the stories. It's all different sizes. It's resizing it and having that message be a little bit diverse depending on where that message is going, can start to make a big difference.
Is the story like you have, at least Facebook, they offer reels too.
Mhm.
How are those very similar to stories and how they perform or what their reach is?
If you put them in your story, you can put reels on your feed or you can put reels in your story. So when you do
I
that,
got you. Okay.
yeah. Yep.
And if you're creating, because we're looking at creating, some reels or some kind of, short videos similar to what you showed earlier. That one was very short. What would be the best recommendation for length? 15 seconds, 30 seconds?
I would honestly say that video is a little long. I would not go much past a 30-second video. Our attention span just isn't there to watch for too long. They did a great job on those videos and you kind of want to watch and see what happens. But I would really not go any longer than 30 seconds, and don't be afraid to do that in 15 and 20 seconds. And you can say a lot. You can say a lot of words in 15 seconds. So you can get your message out there. The other thing that I would say about that is user-generated content or UGC is important. And that is, we want to see real. When we go on our social medias, we want to see very real, relevant, not overly baked and cooked messaging. So don't be afraid to use your phone to take that messaging, to just have a candid conversation with somebody in a reel. You do want to mix of those really good high quality videos that are going to kind of be your evergreens, but also don't be afraid to do, the kind of the shorter messages that you can get out there fast and easy.
I do have another question, but I'll let somebody else step in if they need to. Sorry, April. This is great. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else? They're probably all have your questions and you're the only one brave enough to ask them.
Well, we do have a couple of comments in chat. Everybody's saying thanks and everything. Michaela says that's awesome. Lots of good info and definitely makes sense. Thank you. And then Kaylin says glad that April joined the public outreach committee. So Kaylin's going to be our spokesperson for that committee. So you'll get to work with her.
Great.
So.
I'm excited.
All right, Jordan, go ahead.
Okay. One thing that, other than like our utility bill newsletters that you mentioned, we really haven't talked too much about printed material like brochures, rack cards, postcards. I know you mentioned like, some of the older generations, they are still interested in reading. But I know, at least in our experience, we're really finding that people do not read. They do not read guidance manuals. They do not read directions or instructions. They want everything in black and white, short, very quick. So it's a trend to kind of move away from printed materials that people might collect at an event and moving towards like the more traditional, non-traditional type of information?
Yeah. So there's a place for printed material for sure. Printed material can still work for when you're trying to reach out to kids. So think about coloring books or something that maybe has printed material on one side and then on the back side has an activity for kids to do. So what then happens is mom and dad help the kid with the activity. Hopefully they're reading the other side to get the more adult messaging, or, coloring book, things like that you hand out work. And then depending on if you're going to a senior citizen center, having stuff to hand out, having literature to hand out is still super valuable. If you're going to the Home and Garden Show, I would use it very sparingly.
Yeah, we've definitely noticed over time that just the amount that we hand out has really decreased. Just in my career, I've noticed that go down. And
where it can be helpful is when you have requirements that you have to meet in your marketing and saying that you're getting the message out to people, those printed pieces can become super valuable because you can say, I handed out 100 of this litter flyer to these apartment complexes, or I took, this piece of printed material and I handed it out to all of the apartment complexes in our community. So now it's a very trackable, I gave the information, I told them what was required. So when you're looking at it from a fulfillment of a requirement, printing material can still be a valuable source when you're looking at it as, are people really reading the message? Maybe not. Now, if you walk into an apartment complex and you talk to the manager and you tell the manager, hey, we really need you to start doing your part to keep litter up or to clean up all these oil spills, that here's great information about some ways you can do that. They're going to read that messaging. Yes, it has gone down. It has gone down. People they don't read messaging as much anymore.
Yeah, it seems to me like a balancing act because, especially at the Home and Garden Show you mentioned, we definitely noticed the older crowd are the ones taking the material because technology-wise, they're not quite there, like using a QR code, or they don't have a smartphone. So that's one challenge that we have, trying to reach that demographic, is we have to have something to give them because they don't feel comfortable going to the website. They don't have a computer at home. They still call. That's usually their first step. They'll read something in the newsletter and then call. They don't go to the website. Like, that's usually my go-to. If I see something, I will research it by myself before I'll call and talk to someone.
Absolutely.
But that's not the older generation. So thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. So I would say the one thing about when I said like Home and Garden Shows and people, you could look at it as a way to engage in a conversation with people. Here's my pen, or here's my rack card. Here, learn about this cute little fish. Here's this pack of wildflowers that are native to Oklahoma, and here's how here's how you grow these. You can, and then hand it to them, but use that as an opportunity to actually engage in a conversation instead of just throw it in your bag and then they're never going to read it or pay attention to it.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Michaela commented, as a younger person, I hate to take things that may just end up as trash anyway after I read it once. I like things I can use. So
true.
Very good comment.
Very true.
Well, that does conclude our time with April today. I did put her contact information into chat, and I can include it in the emails that I send later today to the folks that, if I have your email address and you're a COSWA member, you will get, and you attended today, you will get the 6 images that they've created. And of course, if you've also requested a certificate of attendance, I'll get that to you as well, along with April's contact information for further conversations. And you can also join the outreach committee if you're not in a committee, because April's going to be in that with us. So anyway, thank you so much for all the wonderful information, and thanks to everyone for engaging with April today. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, April.
Thank you.